In 1532, something happened in Peru that changed world history forever. 168 Spanish soldiers defeated 80,000 Inca Empire warriors in a single battle. Francisco Pizarro and his men captured the Inca Emperor Atahualpa, and 6 months later, the entire Inca Empire collapsed. How did this happen? Were the Spanish smarter? No. Were the Incas stupid? Of course not. The answer is much simpler and much deeper. Geography. The Spanish had horses. The Incas had never seen a horse. The Spanish had steel swords and guns. The Incas used bronze spears. The Spanish carried smallpox. The Incas had no immunity. And where did these advantages come from? From being born in Europe. Geography is destiny. I'm Jared Diamond. I'm a geography professor at UCLA, and for 30 years I've been trying to answer one question: why did some societies conquer the world and others were conquered? The answer isn't in IQ tests, it's not in genetics, it's not even in culture. The answer is in geography. Which continent you were born on, which plants you had access to, which animals you could domesticate. And what happened in Cajamarca in 1532 is the perfect example of this. Now, let's take this story from the beginning and solve the greatest paradox in world history. The 16th of November, 1532, Cajamarca, Peru, Francisco Pizarro and 168 Spanish soldiers entered a small town in the Andes Mountains. Facing them were 80,000 Inca warriors and Emperor Atahualpa. Logically, the Spanish should have died. They were outnumbered 475 to 1. But what happened was the exact opposite. Pizarro set a trap in the town square. He invited Atahualpa to a meeting. The emperor arrived on a golden throne, carried by bearers. With him were 6,000 unarmed advisors and guards. The Spanish emerged from the buildings where they were hiding and attacked. The result, within 2 hours, 7,000 Inca warriors were dead. Atahualpa was captured. On the Spanish side, not a single casualty. How did this happen? 3 factors: guns, germs, steel. Weapon 1, horses. The Incas had never seen a horse ever in their lives. Why? Because in the Americas, there were no domesticable horses. They went extinct 10,000 years ago. But in Eurasia, horses existed, and they were domesticated 6,000 years ago. In Kazakhstan, in Ukraine, Pizarro's horses were like demons to the Incas, a giant beast with an armored man on top. They had never seen anything like it. Horses gave the Spanish speed, mobility, fear, a battlefield advantage. Weapon 2, steel. The Spanish had steel, swords, and armor. The Incas, bronze spears. Steel versus bronze, like scissors versus paper. Steel cuts through bronze. But why did steel develop in Europe and not in the Americas? The answer: iron ore deposits and technology diffusion. In Eurasia, iron deposits were abundant. In Anatolia, the Caucasus, China, and the continent stretched horizontally. Technology spread easily from east to west. In the Americas, iron was scarce, and the continent stretched vertically, north to south. Technology diffusion was much harder. Geography determined steel. Steel determined war. But the real killer wasn't the sword. The real killer was smallpox. After Pizarro conquered Cajamarca, something happened. One Spanish soldier was carrying smallpox. The disease spread through Inca territory. The result? 90% of the Inca population died, 50 million people, from disease without a single weapon. Smallpox, measles, influenza, tuberculosis, whooping cough. Native Americans had never been exposed to these diseases. They had no immunity. Their bodies were defenseless. But why did Europeans have immunity? Because Europeans had lived with animals for thousands of years. Cows, pigs, horses, chickens, sheep. These animals carried diseases, zoonotic diseases, that jump from animals to humans. Europeans got sick. But over time, they developed immunity. Evolutionary adaptation occurred. In the Americas, there were no domestic animals. There were llamas. That's it. Llamas didn't carry diseases. The result: Native Americans were defenseless against European germs. Germs were the deadliest weapon. And having these germs was a consequence of geography. Okay, Pizarro won. He had horses, steel, and germs. But where did these advantages come from? The answer: Eurasia's geographic advantages. Advantage 1, domesticable plants. 10,000 years ago, agriculture began in the Fertile Crescent, modern-day Iraq, Syria, Turkey. Why there? Because there domesticable grains existed. Wheat, barley, lentils, peas. These plants were easy to domesticate. Large seeds, easy harvest, easy storage. In the Americas, there was corn, but corn, in its wild form, was inedible. It was a small grass called teosinte. It took thousands of years to breed. Eventually, it became corn. The result, in Eurasia, agriculture started 10,000 years ago. In the Americas, 5,000 years ago, a 5,000-year gap. 5,000 years means a technology gap. Advantage 2, domesticable animals. In Eurasia, 13 large mammals were domesticated: horse, cow, sheep, goat, pig, water buffalo, yak, and more. In the Americas, only llama and alpaca. That's it. Why? Because in the Americas, large mammals went extinct 13,000 years ago. Mammoths, horses, camels, all gone. Animals transformed agriculture for plowing, for transport, for milk, for meat, and most importantly, for disease, for immunity. Advantage 3, continental orientation. Eurasia stretches horizontally east to west. The Americas and Africa stretch vertically, north to south. Does this matter? Absolutely, because technology spreads easily along the same latitude, same climate, same day length, same crops work. Wheat developed in Turkey, then spread to Greece, then to Italy, then to France, then to Spain. Easy, but moving from Mexico to Argentina, very difficult. Different climates, different ecologies. The result? In Eurasia, technology spread rapidly. In the Americas, it spread slowly. Now, let's go back 1,532. Cajamarca, 168 Spanish defeated 80,000 Incas. Why? Because the Spanish had horses, because horses were domesticated in Eurasia. The Spanish had steel because iron was abundant in Eurasia and technology spread horizontally. The Spanish had germs because domestic animals in Eurasia carried diseases and Europeans developed immunity. All of this was a result of geography. The Spanish weren't smarter, they weren't genetically superior, they weren't harder working, they were just born on the right continent. And this pattern repeated throughout history. Why did Europeans colonize Africa? Geography. Why was China a technology leader early on? Geography. Why did the Middle East become the cradle of civilization? Geography. History isn't fair. Some societies were born in lucky geography, fertile land, domesticable animals, a horizontal continent. Some were born in unlucky geography. And this difference accumulates over thousands of years. Eventually, some are armed with guns, germs, and steel. Others are left with spears. But this isn't anyone's fault, and it's not anyone's achievement. This is the consequence of geography. History was written by geography, not by genes, not by IQ, not by race. Geography is destiny. And Pizarro's victory at Cajamarca, this was the final act of 10,000 years of geographic advantage.